They got ready for bed. He had returned with news that something had been done to the car, and it would take time. He'd go watch them tomorrow. "But don't knock on the door," she said, standing before the mirror as she undressed. "Leave it unlocked, then," he said. "I want it locked. But don't rap. Call." "What's wrong with rapping?" he said. "It sounds funny," she said. "What do you mean funny?" She wouldn't say. She was looking at herself in the mirror, and she was naked, and with her hands at her sides, and there were her breasts and her hips and her entire body. And it moved. It felt the floor under it, and the walls and air around it. And the breasts could know hands if hands were put there, and the stomach would make no hollow echo if touched. "For God's sake," he said, "don't stand there admiring yourself." He was in bed. "What are you doing?" he said. "What are you putting your hands up that way for, over your face?" He put the lights out. She could not speak to him, for she knew no words that he knew, and he said nothing to her that she understood. And she walked back to her bed and slipped into it, and he lay with his back to her in his bed, and he was like one of those brown-baked people of this faraway town upon the moon, and the real earth was off somewhere where it would take a star flight to reach it. If only he could speak with her, and she to him tonight. How good the night might be, and how easy to breathe, and how lax the vessels of blood in her ankles and her wrists and her underarms. But there was no speaking, and the night was 10,000 tickings and 10,000 twistings of the blankets, and the pillows were like a tiny white worm stove under cheek, and the blackness of the room was a mosquito net draped all about, so that a tern entangled her in it. If only there was one word between them, but there was no word, and the veins did not rest easy in the wrists and the heart. And the heart was a bellows forever blowing upon a little coal of fear, forever illuminating and making it into a cherry light again, pulse, and again an ingrown light, which her inner eyes stared upon with unwonting fascination. The lungs did not rest, but were exercised as if she were a drowned person, and she herself performing artificial respiration to keep the last life going. And all these things were lubricated by the sweat of her gloomy body, and she was glued fast between the heavy blankets like something pressed, smashed, redolently moist between the white pages of a heavy book. And as she lay this way, the long hours of midnight came, when again she was a child. She lay now and again, thumping her heart in tambourine hysterica, then quieting the slow, sad thoughts of bronze childhood, when everything was sun on green trees, and sun on water, and sun on blonde child hair. Faces flowed by on merry-go-rounds of memory, a face rushing to meet her, facing her, and away to the right another whirling in from the left, a quick fragment of lost conversation, and out to the right, around and around. Oh, the night was very long. She consoled herself by thinking of the car starting tomorrow, the throttling sound and the power sound and the road moving under, and she smiled in the dark with pleasure. But then, suppose the car did not start? She crumpled in the dark like a burning, withering paper. All the folds and corners of her clenched in about her, and the tick, tick, tick went the wristwatch. Tick, 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 and another tick to wither on. Morning. She looked at her husband lying straight and easy on his bed. She let her hand laze down at the cool space between the beds. All night her hand had hung in that cold, empty interval between. Once she had put her hand out toward him, stretching, but the space was just a little too long. She couldn't reach him. She had snapped her hand back, hoping he hadn't heard the movement of her silent reaching. There he lay now, his eyes gently closed, the lashes softly interlocked like clasped fingers, breathing so quietly you could scarce see his ribs move, as usual. By this time of morning he had worked out of his pajamas. His naked chest was revealed from the waist up. The rest of him lay under cover. His head lay on the pillow in thoughtful profile. There was a beard stubble on his chin. The morning light showed the white of her eyes. They were the only things in the room in motion, in slow starts and stops, tracing the anatomy of the man across from her. Each little hair was perfect on the chin and cheeks, A tiny hole of sunlight from the window shade lay on his chin and picked out, like the spikes of a music box cylinder, each little hair on his face. His wrists on either side of him had little curly black hairs, each perfect, each separate and shiny and glittering. The hair on his head was intact, strand by dark strand, down to the roots. The ears were beautifully carved. The teeth were intact behind lips. "Joseph!" she screamed. "Joseph!" she screamed again, flailing up in terror. Bong, bong, bong went the bell thunder across the street from the great tiled cathedral. Pigeons rose in a papery white whirl like so many magazines fluttered past the window. The pigeons circled the plaza, spiraling up. Bong went the bells. Honk went a taxi horn. Far away down the alley a music box played. Salido Lindo. All these faded into the dripping of the faucet of in the bath sink. Joseph opened his eyes. His wife sat on her bed staring at him. "I thought," he said. He blinked. "No." He shut his eyes and shook his head. "Just the bells. What time is it?" "I don't know. Yes, I do. 8 o'clock. Good God," he murmured, turning over. "We can sleep 3 more hours. You've got to get up," she cried. "Nobody's up. They won't be at work at the garage until 10. You know that. You can't rush these people. Keep quiet now." "But you've got to get up," she said. He half turned. Sunlight prickled black hairs into bronze on his upper lip. "Why? Why in Christ's name do I have to get up?" "You need a shave," she almost screamed. He moaned. "So I have to get up and lather myself at 8 in the morning because I need a shave?" "Well, you do. You do need one." "I'm not shaving again till we reach Texas." "You can't go around looking like a tramp." "I can and I will. I've shaved every morning for 30 goddamn mornings and put on a tie and had a crease in my pants. From now on, no pants, no ties, no shaving, no nothing." He yanked the covers over his ears so violently that he pulled the blankets off one of his naked legs. The leg hung upon the rim of the bed, warm white in the sunlight, each little black hair perfect. Her eyes widened, focused, stared upon it. She put her hand over her mouth, tight.